Hello everybody, welcome to another video here at Abraham's Table Farm. We are in early November, the 7th right now, and we still have pretty good weather. It's not gotten super cold, only a handful of nights have been really cold, but we're continuing to wrap things up and shut down the garden and try to finish this season well, and also to stage things for next spring. And we're doing more than we've ever done in that regard, so that's really exciting. The main push right now on the farm, and especially in the garden, is to pull out our row covers. We've got row covers that protect some of the crops. You can see them rolled up here. We're pulling them out of the field. There's Jed pulling some out because all the crops are gone from the garden now. Everything has been ripped out for the most part. Storage crops have been removed to storage. There's still kale, and there's a few things in some of the high tunnels, some fresh greens there, but almost all the crops have been ripped out. And so now we're pulling out all of the equipment, like the row covers. We're mowing down crops and shredding them up into tiny residue. We're putting down compost, we're putting down minerals, and we're inoculating with biology to make sure that during the winter time, the process of decomposition and priming can happen that creates that spring flush of growth. It's called humification, that's the technical term, but it's a long, slow process that happens with some of the biology that is cold weather tolerant, and if it happens correctly in the wintertime, then it sets up the spring for a better, healthier growth. And so we are working hard this fall, not only to get crops out for you, and not only to get things into storage to sell all winter, but also to prime everything for that humification process during the winter and to set things up for next year. You know, this farm, we're all about nutrition, and that starts in the soil, that starts in the biology in the soil and the chemistry of the soil. So we are really adamant that we balance the minerals and get that biology stimulated and those communities of biological organisms well fed going into the winter. That's where it all starts. It's the fundamentals, it's the basics. It's not very fancy. It's not very, it just doesn't look all that exciting to spread some rock powders on the soil and to spread some black dirt on the soil, but it makes all the difference. And so we are trying to remain steady on those fundamentals to make sure that over time we can build up into that super nutritious, super flavorful food that we think is so important. So that's what's going on in the garden right now. I'll show you some of the work that we're doing and as we finish out the season. So as you can see, the garden is mostly empty. There's broccoli plants here that just need to be mowed down. There's some residue from old spinach and greens down there, but most of the beds are empty. Some have been replanted, like those black ones with garlic. And over the next day or two, we'll be finishing pulling out the row covers. There's Jed bundling up a long cloth row cover that was covering those spinach beds, and mowing down the rest of these crops and turning them into the soil. Feeding the soil is what we do here, feeding the soil. And right now, late fall is when we give it a lot of food. So mowing down these crops and adding compost is the next steps in this process. Once the row covers are out, other things like these tarps that we use to kill down weeds are removed from the ground. Irrigation will be all disconnected and drained. Actually, it already has been disconnected and drained. And then crops like these mowed down. Even though they look like there's still a lot of good stuff there, they are done. Daniel's firing up the mower over there. He'll be coming this way soon to mow down all these beds of old greens, like these old lettuce beds. They look pretty good from up here, but when you get down in close, they're not that great. So all this will be mowed down, and it will look a lot more like these beds, even these broccoli plants here, shredded to nothing. And then the minerals, the fertility will be added. once everything's been pulled out of the garden, we'll be taking these minerals, various rock powders that are blended at a very particular ratio, mixing them in this concrete mixer to get a homogeneous blend, and then spreading that out in the garden on the garden beds. So that's the remineralization process that we've been working on for several years. Some of those minerals can be spread right away in big quantities, but some of them have to be spread out over multiple years. And so that's where we're at right now, is getting the last little bits of minerals into these garden beds. Once that happens, the plants coming out of these beds will be some of the most nutritious crops you can find. And I'm really excited for that. Every year it gets a little bit better, and this year is going to be a major step forward. The last thing we'll be doing before winter is spreading this compost. This is a huge pile of compost. Got it delivered in a semi earlier this year. I don't know if you can see the size of it, but it's like 30 some cubic yards of compost. And we will be spreading that on the garden beds to make sure that they're protected and all the biology that is in there is well protected for the winter time. And that'll be a lot of our fertility for next year as well. So getting it in place will set the bed for the humidification process through the winter. It'll set the fertility for next year, and it means that first thing early spring, when the weather permits, we'll be able to jump into those beds and get things planted as soon as possible and have early crops as soon as possible. So it's getting cold out, but it looks like we've got enough decent days with decent weather to get all this compost spread onto the garden beds. And then we'll be able to shut down and have Thanksgiving. One other thing that's changed here on the farm is that the chickens are now off pasture. This is the mobile coop that we use all summer, and when the snow hit last week is when the birds had to go from pasture. So they are all gone. We still need to clean up some things out here. The net fences that keep them protected all summer, their waterers, some troughs, a few things that didn't go with them need to be cleaned up and stored for the winter, but the birds are done with the pasture, which is a little bit of a hard call to make because, as you can see, there's still quite a bit of green grass out here, and when we have sunny days like this, it's actually pretty nice. And so we wish that the birds could still be out on pasture a little bit longer, but when the weather breaks and we have some heavy snow and stuff, they are fairly uncomfortable, and we need to make sure that they are comfortable and stress-free. And so they've gone into their winter housing for now. But as you can see, still pretty out here. The fertility has definitely improved in these fields from when we first got here several years ago. Before then, very little grass was growing out here, mostly sedge and goldenrod and strawberry and a lot of bare soil. But now it's thickened, it's filled in, and there's a lot of grass even late in the season. So we're really proud of that, and we will continue to see that build and build over the years, and more food get produced from these fields. But the pasture season is over now. But here inside the high tunnels, we've still got a lot of greens growing, spinach, lettuce. We've got kale outside as well. Some of these greens are pretty hardy and they'll last through the cold weather easily. So it's really nice to have fresh crops even late in the season to mix in with those storage crops. The winter squash, the onions, the garlic, all of these things that you want in those warming roast dishes in the late fall, and the soups are great. We've still got a lot of beef, ground beef, and chicken. We've got tons of eggs. So there's still a lot of food coming off the farm, and we're really proud of that. Nutrient-dense food year-round and a full diet is the goal, and we're getting a little closer every year. Slow and steady. Building up soil fertility, slow and steady. Focusing on the basics. You have to eat every single day, and it needs to be nutritious. It's not special, it's not fancy, it's not cutting edge, but it's so vital and so foundational and important. And that's how it goes all throughout the farm. Focus on the basics: soil health, nutrition, minerals, all of the things that are at the foundational levels to make sure that it builds up and builds up into something truly incredible and special later on. So we're doing that. We're pushing into late fall, getting that work done, doing the simple things and doing them right, so that we can have that slow build year after year, better and better and better food that's more and more nourishing and more abundant. So if that's important to you, if you want to focus on the basics, the fundamentals, the foundational things, if you want to be feeding your family really healthy food and really nutritious, flavorful food that tastes great, if you want to be gathering people around meals and building community around food, then you've come to the right place, and that's what we're after, and we hope you are too. So please keep placing those orders, all that food. We need people to continue to order food throughout the winter. So if you can do that, if you're going to be eating this winter, you might as well. And we thank you for your support. We thank you for watching these videos. We thank you for placing those orders. We thank you for taking the time to tell your friends about our farm. And hopefully between your support and our continued work, we'll be able to create some really, really good food all through the winter, and then taking off in the spring again as well. So stay tuned as we finish wrapping up. We'll definitely be done by Thanksgiving. Probably in about 1 week or 10 days, we'll have everything tucked away and settled down for winter, and then we will transition into the inside work of the farm. But stay tuned for those last weeks on the farm. Thanks for watching.